Hey there, everybody. It's Carol Maletta from the Parenting 411, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. I just wanted to hop on, first of all, just to say Happy New Year to you. And then, as I had said earlier, I just wanted to check in and see how everybody is doing. I mean, yesterday was unbelievable. Um, so unexpected. I mean, I guess we knew that there would be protests about the outcome of the election. And certainly as we inch closer to Inauguration Day, there's still certain folks out there that are holding out hopes that the election could be overturned. I mean, including the guy at the top. So I just wanted to see how you all were doing because my goodness, there was just a lot for children to be seeing on TV. It was tough for me to watch and see people, um, storming into the people's house. You may have seen a post that I put up earlier today, just showing where I had been there several times to Capitol Hill, to the Capitol, and to the different offices of elected officials to meet with them, and just to see that happening at a place where I'd actually been, and the majestic building buildings, and to see it being desecrated that way was definitely hard for me to watch. And so I was very curious about how your children were seeing it. I mean, because it's on the one hand, what has happened this year, the whole election process has really been a way for all of us, including our children, to really learn about the election process. So many years it's been very straightforward, right? We cast our votes. I mean, of course, sometimes there's problems with that. So we've learned a little bit about that over the last few elections. But for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. The votes are cast. Someone wins the election, someone loses the election. There's a concession speech, and we begin to prepare for a peaceful transfer of power. So we haven't had to consider the 25th Amendment or, and even really, although many of us are familiar with the impeachment process, I mean, certainly those of us who remember the Nixon, that he faced impeachment, and certainly, Bill Clinton, even that was an education. The impeachment of Donald Trump was an education for those who maybe haven't seen that process in their lifetime. And so now we're learning about other things. They're like, I call them almost contingencies, like things don't go smoothly, which is the way we're accustomed to seeing them go. There are certain avenues, there's certain ways, processes that we can undertake to get back on track, to ensure that we have solid leadership in this country. And so I was just wondering how you all were doing with it. I don't have little ones at home that I would have to explain this to, but it certainly does need to be explained. And as I had posted earlier, Time for Kids, it's like Time Magazine for Kids, did explain it. They called the article Chaos at the Capitol. And I'm not going to read it to you, but just to give you a sense of what they included. And, they really took a factual approach and laid out the events of the day. They explained that yesterday was a day that the members of Congress were meeting to certify the votes. And so, they also give you a timeline that President Trump spoke at a rally, and he repeated his false claim, like they did include that, that the election was stolen from him. And so then they go on to say that many of the supporters marched to Capitol Hill and up the steps to the Capitol, and then they talk about the mob pushing its way through the into the Capitol and pushing past Capitol Police and all of that. And then the fact that police and National Guard troops had to come in to try to restore order. And then talks about President Trump's video message on Twitter and what he had to say. And, even to include the fact that he continued to praise the crowd, telling his supporters, "We love you." And they were also quick to point out that many leaders around the world and around the country condemned the violence. So I think it's actually a good place to start. It's factual. That's the main thing. It doesn't go out of its way. It's a nonpartisan. They take a nonpartisan approach. It's very factual. And I think it's a good conversation starter. And it's a way to, again, talk to them about many elements. You can talk to your children about protests and the fact that protests don't have to look like what we saw yesterday. They can be orderly and they can have a purpose and they can get attention of those who are in charge, who can make decisions, who can have an influence on their lives. Protesting can be a very good and positive thing. It brings attention to issues of concern. So that's another element. It also gives you an opportunity to, again, teach them about the political process in our country and walk them through it. An election year in general is a great time to do it. As I said, they're going to learn a lot more about the process because things have not gone smoothly. Normally when elections go smoothly, we can take a lot for granted. We can know that while there will be people who are disappointed because their candidate didn't win, we're going to move forward. We're going to get behind the person who was elected. And again, even if you don't love the person, you don't like their policies, you're going to follow the rules, you're going to respect the person, and, listen, wait until the next 4 years and really work toward getting a candidate that you like in office. And so we're just seeing kind of the worst of what we can be in this country right now. And it's a scary time. It's a frightening time. But we can also let our children know that it's going to be taken care of. Like this yesterday, for whatever reason, we didn't seem to be prepared for that type of occurrence. And frankly, it's been many, many years since anything close to that has even happened. So if you would like to talk about it, if you'd like for me to have a conversation with you on News You Can Use or someone you'd like me to bring on, I am happy to do that. I think it's very important to help our children feel comfortable, feel that their country is in good hands, that we're safe, that you're safe in your home, and that you're safe in your communities. This is a very important time to really, at an age-appropriate level, let them know some of what is going on, and talk about it in ways that they can understand. About the idea of being disappointed and how you handle that, about being in a contest and not winning the contest, and how you conduct yourself if you don't win, about being a graceful winner. There's a way to do that too. So there's a lot you can teach. There's a lot you can unpack here. Hey, Karan, thank you so much for tuning in. Let's see what you're saying. Yes, yesterday was absolutely unbelievable. Yeah, you're right. We knew this would happen. I didn't know at that level. I just was not expecting that. I guess I keep expecting decorum. I keep expecting self-control. I keep expecting that people know how to handle disappointment, that people are resilient, that they can bounce back when things don't go their way. And parents, that's something that, we really can teach. We really can teach that while our children are young. I mean, they certainly are going to have their own minds, but we can provide the foundation so that they know how they should conduct themselves. Um, yeah, well, I mean, you say it wasn't unbelievable, it was absolutely believable. Well, given the last couple of years we have had, I would say, yeah, it is a sort of, I mean, excuse me, is sort of believable because, you know, things have been happening, crazy things have been happening that, none of us ever thought we'd ever see. And it has a lot to do with leadership. It has a lot to do with leadership. And hopefully we will get back to um, a normal way of living. I mean, some things I think are forever changed, but just the civility. I really hope that we can get back to civility. And parents, it's in our hands in terms of the next generation. Um, to plant the seeds of civility in our children today so that they know um, how to conduct themselves, how to conduct government. Yes, we have to tell our children the truth, Karan. I cannot agree more. And that's why I was, just reading a little bit from the article in Time for Kids magazine that describes what happened yesterday. We have to tell them the truth. And I feel this article does a good job of doing that. Like it says flat out that the president was making false claims, you know. Like it's basically a nonpartisan article, but it tells the truth. It doesn't sugarcoat it. And it even goes on to say that he had a rally. He had a rally and the things that he said and what his supporters did next. So that's what I really like about it. It's not a long article, but I definitely think it can start conversations with your children because absolutely, I agree. I think you keep it age appropriate, but you tell the truth. I could not agree with you more, Karan. That is very important because I think that's not telling the truth has gotten us here because a lot of people really do not understand our country's history, and that's what we're reckoning with right now. People don't understand our country's history. They don't understand the ramifications and the consequences, and so therefore, a lot of people, some people are waking up. Some people are waking up, this year, but over the past year, some people truly didn't know. And again, that's because educators, it gets back to the truth because you also, I mean, at a certain age, you don't know because you don't want to know. Because there are plenty of sources of information to learn about the history of your country. Like everybody should. I mean, if you live here, you ought to know the history of your country. I don't care whether you are a citizen, you're not a citizen. You just ought to know about the place that you're living in, understand the history. And so absolutely. And so you have people here that they can't stand to hear what people that look like them did in the beginning of this, the forming of this nation. And that's the problem. I mean, you actually have textbooks. And of course, when you're in school, you think the textbook is the gospel truth, right? And if you don't have parents or family members who supplement what you're learning in school and correct what you're learning, then you grow up and you have this idealistic way of looking at our country. And don't get me wrong, I'm not putting, this is the only country this is the only country I've lived in permanently. This is where I was born and raised. So, I love my country, but there needs to be some change. I mean, there has really been. I mean, and you can really just bring this down to uh, terms that a child can understand. And let's face it, for the last since 2008, there's been a collective temper tantrum in this country. Basically, that's what's happening. I mean, that things. You don't like who gets elected or whatever. You have a problem with them. At least it used to be that we disagreed on policy. We disagreed on, ideology. But, frankly, it's getting to be color of, it's just people are coming right out with it. It's about color of the skin, and so, that's when you realize that, this great experience, this great melting pot experiment that, they used to talk about when you think about the United States and all of that, and our history of welcoming immigrants and all of that, that we haven't done a good job of really respecting differences. And of people that come here, and in the case of Black people who helped build this country, who helped settle this country. And then, of course, we cannot, overlook the Native Americans, the people who were already here when the country was so-called discovered. So there's just a lot to unpack. There's a lot of pain here. But as I say, and as Karan has alluded to as well, this is a golden opportunity for education. And some of the facts might be hard to hear, might be hard to process, but that does okay to continue sugarcoating it, because it's going to keep coming back. It's going to keep coming back until it's dealt with. And I'm hoping that we are in a space where we're going to have people who are willing to deal with this. And I'm not talking about just the leaders, not just our country's leaders, but as I said, parents, adults, educators, just everywhere. It is time for us to seriously deal with this. Let me just check here for a moment. Oh, hello, Sister Hargrove. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please feel free to drop your comments if you have anything to say. I really just wanted to hop on because I reached out earlier and offered, any parents that wanted to talk about how their family is processing yesterday's events, and honestly, maybe even how they're dealing with the past year that we've had. Because it started out with a health crisis, but very quickly it laid bare underlying racial tensions, certainly the inequities all over the place. Whether you're talking about education, whether you're talking about our judicial system, whether criminal justice, and so. It's been a heavy year. It's been a lot, but at the same time, it's been an opportunity if you've been open to really learn more about our country's history, learn more about how this country works, and certainly through the whole election process. So. This has been a trying period, and I think we've got a lot more trying years to go. Hopefully, again, we can nip this coronavirus in the bud, so that we can stop the loss of life and the pain that families are experiencing, and deal with these issues that we have. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. So if we could take that off the table, that would certainly be a blessing. So that's about all I have for tonight, unless anybody has any questions or comments or things you want me to talk about. But I thank you all for tuning in, and I hope everybody is safe. By all means, if you are in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, please, by all means, Follow any curfews, any recommendations from your local officials about how you can be safe. Please do that. It's just not worth it to get out there to be in the midst of this. And hopefully it will, people will accept reality, or those who can't accept reality will be dealt with in court accordingly by our law enforcement officers, around the DMV. But we are going to march on. There is going to be a new administration. I've been online in other meetings tonight, but I did see a tweet saying that President Trump has conceded. So that's great. We were still moving on. That's the way the process works. That's something else you can explain to children as well. That it's going to march on, whether you do the courteous and professional and respectful thing or not. The person who won the election will be moving into office. And so hopefully things are going to die down in terms of violence and all of that, but the issues will still be here. And I hope that people still have the appetite and the energy for us to dig into them and make some changes and make some progress for sure in eliminating inequality and inequity in our country. So thank you again for tuning in tonight. I hope that you will tune into the Parenting 411 radio show tomorrow. You can listen at WOLB 1010 AM if you happen to be in your car or something. But the best place is probably WOLBbaltimore.com. The title is Boss Moms, Finding Peace and Wellness in a Pandemic. And I'm going to be talking to two boss moms, two very busy moms. First will be Kia Tomlin. She is a fashion designer and apparel manufacturer. She is a mom of 3, and she is the wife of Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we're going to talk to her about her business, how she has had to make adjustments in the midst of the pandemic, both in her business and at home, how she's managing, how she's coping with the whole distance learning and all of that, and keeping things sane in the household for her family. And then we'll also be talking with Angelica Talon of Angelica in the City. She is a blogger. She is a content creator. She travels, and she's also a travel blogger. She's a lifestyle blogger. She's going to be on as well. Again, we're going to talk to her about her business and her platform and how she creates harmony between all of this, integrating all of this with her family. But I see that her family is very, connected with her business as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about how she's doing that, how she too is managing with her children at home, how she's balancing her work commitments, as well as helping her children stay on track with schoolwork. So again, we're going to be talking about this tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on WOLB 1010 AM. Or you can listen at WOLBbaltimore.com. So please tune in. I think it's going to be a great show. I really want these mothers to not only talk about the work they do, but to share the lessons that they've learned. I mean, we've got a little while longer. We're going to be dealing with these protocols, the social distancing and the mask wearing, and possibly distance learning a little longer, although I know a lot of school districts are trying to figure that out. They really want to get their students back in school. But, they still probably have some tips that you can use for the remainder of the time. But then also, I'm willing to bet that they, as well as you all, have learned a lot of lessons about yourself, about your life, and about what's important and what your priorities need to be in the midst of this pandemic. It's really given you a lot to think about, because we've made a lot of sacrifices. And so it would be interesting to know how much you've learned that maybe you can do without now. Or maybe it's made you realize that you appreciate family more. You appreciate the time that you get to spend with family, and you've resolved within yourself that you're gonna to work on preserving friendships and preserving connections with family. Or maybe you found new ways to do things you used to do, but you're able to do them in new and more creative ways. So there's a lot. I think we've learned a lot about ourselves. We learned about a lot about other people, and as I said at the top of this session, we've learned a lot about our country um, over the past year. Adversity does that to you. So please tune in tomorrow. And I may come on here afterward and talk about the show and see what your thoughts were. And as usual, if you are unable to catch the show, I always post a link a few days later. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time tonight. I hope that I will see you tomorrow or hear from you tomorrow about the show. And you guys take care.